it is good to check with your regulator. If we don't know there's bad actors out there,
Yeah.
there's issues that are going on, then we can't really take any type of action. The encouragement is to open up the door and say, come speak with us, talk with us.
Be part of the solution. You can sit around and see the problems every day that walk through the door in business, and you can shake your fist at the sky and say, well, somebody ought to do something about that. But if you're not participating in the stream where solutions are coming about via discussions, then for me, when I was in business, that just felt like a little bit of a waste of time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Keys to Real Estate. Well, today's episode is meant to help you get more engaged with the folks who help shape your market's oversight. We have two guests today who want to encourage you to become more engaged with your state's insurance regulators. They're modernizing the NAIC's title insurance engagement with stakeholders via a new working group. Connie Van Slyke and Chuck Myers are my guests today, and they're going to tell you all about the new initiative and how to get involved. Now, Connie came up in the insurance business and since 1994 has been with the Nebraska Department of Insurance, while Chuck is currently the Deputy Commissioner for the Louisiana Department of Insurance, and previously he was at the Virginia Bureau of Insurance. And we all know that insurance is a state-regulated industry, so engaging with the NAIC's Title Insurance Working Group just makes good sense. So let's get right to it and enjoy this conversation with Chuck Myers and Connie Van Slyke. The presenting sponsor for this season of Keys to Real Estate is Closing Lock. Working in title, do you ever feel like you've got a target on your back? Every year, $2 trillion moves in and out of escrow accounts in the United States. Fraudsters are watching and waiting for one wrong click, one unsecured email, just one oversight. And then just like that, your client's life savings are gone. That's where Closing Lock comes in. Closing Lock provides title companies a secure, all-in-one platform to prevent fraud, protect funds, and streamline closings. Over 1 million home sales have closed safely without incident in Closing Lock. The fraudsters only have to be right once. Title companies have to be right every time. Closing Lock has your back. Visit closinglock.com today to learn more. Chuck and Connie, welcome to Keys to Real Estate. We're so glad to have you with us today.
Hey, Mary, thank you for having us. We appreciate October Research and you inviting us to have this conversation with you today to talk about the Title Insurance Working Group from the NAIC.
Well, it's something a lot of people need to know about, and we're glad that you're here to educate. So let's start with the basics. For those that don't know, what is the NAIC?
Sure, that's a great question. Connie and I today are taking a step outside of our normal working at our departments and coming to you today as the chair and the co-chair of the Title Insurance Working Group. And it's good to make sure we're clear that our discussion today is going to be specific to the NAIC's working group and not necessarily our individual departments. With that being said, the NAIC stands for the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and really, when you think about it, that association started back in 1871. And what it did was it gave a platform for the state regulators to come together to meet to discuss the different topics and issues that are going on in the industry itself, but then how it's particularly going on within their states. Now, contrary to popular belief, some folks believe that the NAIC is a federal agency, and I want to emphasize it is not a federal agency. The NAIC is exactly what it says it is. It's an association that gives the 50 states, DC, we have 5 territories as well. So you have 56 jurisdictions represented to come together, discuss things like model laws, talk about compliance issues. Solvency, of course, is a big one. We want to make sure that the insurers are out there. They're going to be able to pay the claims and to be financially strong when those consumers need to have their policies take care of them. In a nutshell, that's what the NAIC really is. Really, since we're talking about title today, it'd be really good to also let you know when title insurance became a focal point of the NAIC. And, I'll leave that to Connie to talk to you about that.
Well, yeah, and it is important since insurance is a state-regulated product. So you guys sit at the focus point from that. So yeah, Connie, I'd love to hear about how's the group been with title insurance across time?
Well, the NAIC has been involved in title insurance going back to the 1960s when the industry was rapidly evolving and needed more focused oversight. So the American Land Title Association approached the NAIC about creating a dedicated forum for title insurance. So in June of 1969, the NAIC established the Title Insurance Regulation Subcommittee, F7. And by 1972, that had evolved into the Title Insurance Task Force. And now in 2025, we are renaming the task force the Title Insurance Working Group. So we still have the same mission. It's strengthening title insurance regulation.
Yeah, it's great. And I do want to talk with you about those changes because I think it's going to be very interesting for industry folks to understand what's different. Before we get there, I wanted to ask, we know this because our people work in the insurance world. But when we say title insurance, people go, I don't know what that is. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges that regulators face? Because you're tasked with oversight across many lines of insurance business. And I know there are some challenges or there's some differences with title that don't exist in the P&C world or other lines. So I'd love for you guys to talk about that a little bit since we're so different.
You're right, Mary. That is exactly the point, that when you work in the industry, many of your listeners or your subscribers, it's a day-to-day function. You deal with the day-to-day ins and outs of title or settlement and those arrangements. But think about it as we all are not just title insurance consumers if we've bought a home, but we're all insurance consumers when it comes to our auto or homes. We deal with them either on a 6-month or an annual basis, or if there's a minor accident or a broken windshield or a different event that happens at home, we're dealing with our personal homeowner and auto insurance sometimes on a daily, weekly basis. So it's always before us. It's no different with the regulators. Those are the issues that we're seeing, is the increasing cost of homeowners and auto insurance and all of those factors that marry into that. But when you look at title, you don't want to say it's a one and done because you pay that at closing. Sometimes they think the consumer loses that in the process. They know they have to have it, whether it's lenders, owners, closing protection letters. So they do all of that at closing, and title insurance is looking backwards. It's not looking forwards. They're not really thinking about that on a day-to-day or at least an annual basis. So that's some of the challenges even as a regulator that we have, is that one, first of all, regulators that specialize in different areas, whether it's solvency, compliance, other P&C lines, may not have the insight as much as you'd like them to have as far as the title insurance piece. One of the things that we do, and we know that's somewhat a challenge for the industry or agents, is that it's state-based systems. So each state may have some differences in their state laws as it relates to title settlement type business. So what the NAIC's Title Insurance Working Group has is a survey of state insurance laws regarding title data and title matters. And what this does is it brings a side-by-side comparison together of all the different state laws and regulations, so you have it there at one glance. That makes it somewhat easier for at least the agent that has multi-state operations, insurers who obviously want to operate in the various states that they've chosen to write in. But it gives them that opportunity to take a look to see the differences. But it also helps us as regulators to see if there's certain differences, or maybe there may be some changes that one state wants to make that another state has. So it's really a good working tool as far as that goes. And I know there's some other challenges that may face consumers as well.
Yeah, I would add to that and say that there are always new threats. We see wire fraud scams and deep fake impersonations that typically you don't see in other lines of insurance. So that's always challenging. And then title insurance is built on decades of public records. So if there's even a tiny gap in the chain, it can cause major issues down the road. Another thing to think about, and Chuck kind of touched on this, was the consumer angle. Home buyers don't go out and shop around for title insurance like they would, say, your personal auto. So that task force created the title insurance consumer shopping tool that helps buyers see all of their options and costs and everything in one place. And we are going to roll out an update to that this year with all the latest products. So we've got some work ahead of us on that.
Yeah. Well, and that is an important tool. And well, basically my 25 or 30 years career in this industry, I've spent an inordinate amount of time unsuccessfully trying to get consumers to care about who their title agent is and teaching them how to be an educated consumer about this. And unfortunately, a lot of times when they're in that home buying process and they're just wanting people to throw green lights. Just don't let me muck it up. Don't let me pick the wrong. And so unfortunately, they tend to go fast when making some of these selections when they really should slow down and understand. But it's a critical time. It's an important time. And so we don't always get that outcome. But anything we can do with consumer home buyer, home borrower education is so important. So I'm wondering, you guys have mentioned you're changing the format of the group within the NAIC from a task force to a working group. For those of us that aren't familiar with the distinction, what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I'll take a first stab at the question, Mary. And that's exactly right. One of the first things that when the NAIC moved it from task force to working group, one of the first things that Connie and I wanted to do is we wanted to reach out to industry before we had our first working group meeting to make sure that they understood that moving it from a task force to a working group didn't mean that the NAIC was taking title and putting it in the back seat or trying to push it away from those spring, summer, fall NAIC meetings. Really what it does is it takes, when you have a task force, you have commissioners or their appointees that come to the table, come to the meeting, and that's a good thing. But a lot of times, majority of the times, the commissioners are relying on their specialized staff to give them the information of what's going on in the industry so they can make those policy type decisions. Moving it to a working group allows those specialized staff from the different departments to come together, get in front of the industry, or I want to say the trades, if you want to call it, whether it's ALTA or the different Land Title Association members, and interact with them within the meeting, have those conversations, hear direct, get involved in what's going on the ground, in the office, what are their concerns. Also take a look at collaborative research. So we can go back and we can talk with their commissioners and with the departments and give them the best type of information and the best type of direction that we need to take. Not only it's just specific for the industry, but also for our individual states. You have to think the NAIC also takes a look at it as you look at things nationally, but we act locally. And so that's some of the basic pieces of why NAIC went from a task force to a working group.
Right. And it's not always about who's in the room. It's how we meet. As Chuck said, not everyone can make it to the big NAIC meetings. Yeah. So we felt this is more flexible, especially with virtual meetings.
Yeah.
And, the core mission remains the same. We're here we feel like with broader engagement and easier access, it'll encourage better conversations and give everybody a chance to participate and share insights and stay in the loop.
Well, I am excited to hear that you're really, it sounds like, encouraging industry members to participate. And so I hope we have a lot of people listening who would like to know how to do that. What would be the best way for them to start to engage? I mean, they haven't met you guys yet. They might not know a lot of people in the group. So what should they be doing?
Well, if they're looking to get involved, all they need to do is go to the NAIC website and look for the Title Insurance Working Group page, which can be found under the Property and Casualty Committee group. And there they'll find all of the meeting information, both public meetings and WebEx meetings. That also has the agendas for the meetings, the membership information, meeting materials. Then if they want to stay in the loop via email, they just need to look for the staff contact person listed on the working group page. And then if you email them and say you want to be on the working group distribution list, they'll get you on there.
Okay, well, I'm thrilled that you're encouraging, and I want to encourage especially agents to attend because they give such a unique view into their discrete and distinct marketplaces that really contributes into the information stream in a meaningful way. And having the virtual piece, I think, is going to help so much. I'm really enthused about that.
I mean, it's a good opportunity also to bring out the fact that October research has become very active coming to the NAIC meetings. That came just from that type of interaction. And then being involved also is very helpful in getting the word out that we were having, that the working group was having an initial online meeting. We had over 100 participate in that first meeting, and that was due to a lot of word of mouth, really. Industry spread it out to their agents, their other co-parts that work in other different insurers talked with each other. So it's not just competitive that we really don't want to, there's no trade secrets going on. But when you have regulators taking a vested interest, it's very good to see publications like October Research and the different land title associations and the insurers coming together to get everybody on board to start that conversation. So we appreciate that with the first meeting. And we know if they stay tuned, I'm sure there'll be all sorts of advertisements when these meetings are coming out, either from your land title associations, October Research, or others as the meetings continue to move forward.
Well, yes, and we believe passionately every stakeholder has a desire and an interest in having a safe and sustainable and healthy marketplace. So I really do encourage everybody to participate. For those who get a little intimidated to speak with their regulators, for a variety of reasons, we hear this sometimes. They go, oh, yeah, I have firm opinions, but can I submit a memo? I'm wondering, have you heard about some people being nervous about interacting with you? I wonder if you've got any stories about that. And can we also help disavow that you're scary or that this is complicated or anybody that's nervous? Let's talk them through a few of those things.
Well, I don't think we're that scary, but there are concerns that I think industries are worried that, if they accidentally say something, it could trigger an enforcement action. And that's not the goal. We're really here to have open conversations to find out what's happening out in industry. And another concern is the fact that they're concerned about if what they say may end up in the public record. And that's a valid concern, but we really do value the information that they give us. And so if there's an issue surrounding confidentiality, we're more than happy to meet with people individually afterwards. So we would encourage that.
Yeah, absolutely. There is that underlying thought that the regulator wants to go out and play whack-an-agent, kind of similar like, your whack-a-mole games that you have. And that's not the case. I mean, trust me, if we have some bad players out there, regulators are going to take the appropriate action. They're just not going to swoop in and start fining people from that direction. Funny story, since you asked for a funny story. I think my first NS3 event went back 10 years ago. It was in Charlotte, I remember. And I was the only regulator there. And I was with a different agency. I was with Virginia. And I remember going around and, talking with people, talking with underwriters. It was my first year working within the real estate settlement agents investigation section. So it was going around wanting to engage. And one of the conversations with one of the underwriters, we were talking, everything was fine until he looked down at my name tag and badge and said, "Oh my God, you're a regulator," and gave me one of these and walked away. And after that, I remember talking with one of the editors and said, "Hey, we need to do something a little bit better with this because we're here to engage. We understand why there's some apprehension, but really what we want to do is, if you check with the regulator, then you make it information that's going to help you. Whether we go out and we do, we're asked to come out and do presentations or continued education type. And one of the things that we did here in particularly was to go out and to talk about what are the statutes that affect title settlement agents. And sometimes you think it's only in that section that says title, but because you're dealing with funds and monies and fiduciary responsibilities, it tends to creep over into some of those financial laws as well. And so one of the things that, forgive the pun, but I usually tell folks, it's better to check with the regulator than to write one. So if you're concerned about having we'll say penalty, then it is good to check with your regulator. It's also good if we don't know there's bad actors out there, there's issues that are going on, then we can't really take any type of action. So the encouragement is to open up the door and say, come speak with us, talk with us, and let's see what makes sense. And, you can do that at the state level, but also, with the NAIC, it helps us take a look at the broader issues since title is starting to become on the national wavelength. It's good that they participate with the working group as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and it is very interesting to be in the meetings and hear what's going on in the different states, or say what you hear like, well, the little seasoned bit of fraud we're experiencing right now, it's that model, but it's got this little different take on it. And the shared learning that happens is so important. And you're right, we haven't always felt as comfortable as an industry as we should. That last 10 years, especially, Chuck, that you mentioned, I mean, I think a lot of us have gone out of the way from both sides of the fence to say, yes, let's find each other. Let's meet each other in the middle. Let's discuss things so that we can have, sensible policy that works, that does keep the market healthy and is a benefit for everybody. So I'd like to think we've come a long way in the last 10 years, but I love that you have designed this next step to help take the collaboration and communication further. I think that's important because I think everybody has an obligation, in my opinion, and these are my words only, to be part of the solution. You can sit around and see the problems every day that walk through the door in business, and you can shake your fist at the sky and say, well, somebody ought to do something about that. But if you're not participating in the stream where solutions are coming about via discussions, then for me, when I was in business, that just felt like a little bit of a waste of time. So I'm glad you put some structure to it, and I'm glad that you're inviting all comers. Just to orient folks with the things that you're working on right now, what are the critical issues that you're evaluating with respect to title and settlement?
Yeah, that's great. The working group first meeting in April, I'm going to go through because I know your listeners are well in tune with what's going on at the federal level. But, let's take a look at the federal policy and the attempts to come in and shape the future of title insurance really over really the last couple of years. What puts the, title industry more on center stage at the federal national level than when you have an administration, take a absolute directive to, Department of Treasury to say, look into title matters, title issues. So when you take a look at the FHFA, particularly now their title pilot program where, you pay a fee to Fannie Mae. And of course, whenever you hear the Fed say, we're going to make things simple, we're going to cut costs, and I'm not just going to beat up on the Feds. You hear that sometimes at the state level too. And really what it looks like is going on is we're going to give an alternative option to your traditional title insurance, looking at either automated public risk assessments. There's some issues with that, especially when, want to take a look at how's it approach fraud. And, if I remember correctly, this pilot program, 18 months? And that really doesn't seem like a whole lot of time to really gauge how that's going to have a cause and effect if it was to come in and completely replace, title is what Freddie or Fannie wants to have involved in their closings. We also talked about attorney opinion letters. And, those AOLs, it used to be, an online IT thing, but, you've got your attorney opinion letters now with these different, liability backers. And, those are always going to be on the agenda, as it appears, because it seems like the companies that want to bring these alternative products in want to continue to try to show how it's either the same or better than title insurance. But when you take a look at the back end for a regulator side of it, we have to determine whether or not there is that insurance principle or piece that goes with it. And so is it just like your contractor out there that you want an insured and bonded contractor? Now you have this attorney opinion letter. They're trying to say, hey, well, it's insured also. But is it insured or is it an insurance product? And those are things that we're also relying on industry and agents to come forward when they see these products evolving. So we can take a look at those, and if they are deemed an insurance product, then we can take appropriate action in those directions.
One thing I'd add to that is there's the FinCEN rule that's coming up in December of 2025. And what that is it's a requirement for settlement agents to report all cash and entity purchased real estate transactions. And then just one other thing is the beyond policy changes is we're keeping an eye on the title insurance or title related research that the American Academy of Actuaries are doing. And they're going to report that to us at our next meeting. And we're excited about that. And it's always good to have data-driven information to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing those results as well. And yes, it's a very good point about sort of the AOLs and the pilot program and what is this product and what is the product not. And it's interesting that to me now, in fairness, again, this is just me, is not my company stance by any stretch. But it's interesting as we begin to understand these AOL products, what they are, what they aren't, where they fit in the marketplace, what the right place is. My priors, I'll admit, I'm an old title and settlement girl, so that's where my default brain goes. But it's interesting to me that we have these innovative products that are pretty much the same product that title insurance was invented to be better than. That irony is noted. And I'm not going to ride that hobby horse. It's just as we go to NS3 next month, we're going to be in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. And I was reminded that Pennsylvania was the birthplace of title insurance, because who do we see about that? If there's a problem, it didn't really work if it was Frank the attorney and he'd pulled up stakes and had gone. I love that you're looking into all that. These products do need reevaluated. I know they are a bit different, and we need to see where they fit if there's a place. So glad you're looking on that. Looking forward to hearing more about that. For agents and all industry stakeholders, but especially agents, what would you like to know more about them? Like, what could specifically, but not exclusively, agents tell you that would help keep the markets, strong and sustainable? Are you looking for data? Are you looking for the stories of what they're experiencing with fraud or challenges? Tell us what they can contribute to this pie.
Okay, I was pausing because it looked like I thought Connie was going to talk, so I didn't want to talk over. How these things go. And I'm also thinking about hey, what you're bringing up as far as these attorney opinion letters. And one of the things, before I go on with your next question regarding what we want to hear from agents, one of the things I want your listeners and want to understand is that even engaging with insurers that are bringing forth these attorney opinion letters, one of the things as a regulator that I've asked them to do is that one thing that's helpful for us is if you can spell it out almost like an investigative report. You can tell us, hey, this is what's going on, and here's something else that's happening, and here's this new product. But if we can see it and read it and wrap our hands around or our arms around those facts and those issues and put all the pieces together, that's very helpful for a regulator to move in I want to say a more expedited fashion, but it saves us some of the time of having to do some of that dive, the research and the data, which may get pushed down on priorities. So I wanted to bring that piece up as far as the interaction with the insurers on these alternative products, and hopefully that leads right into your question, what do we want to hear from agents? And you relied on some of your prior career in settlement, and I'll do some of the same as far as the regulator that dealt specifically with title settlement agents. There's a tendency that, you see something, say something. That's key. Don't wait. You made a comment earlier about, sometimes waiting to see if somebody else is going to do something. And, how many stories have we heard about people being victimized in the city streets? And so many people saw it, but everybody was waiting for somebody else to do something. Of course, that's why our 911 system was created, right? Because there was too many of those incidents. Yeah. Same thing. It's breaching that gap of saying you can reach out to the regulator, you can have that conversation. When you do, we want to hear what you're seeing, what you're hearing, whether it's banks out there that are possibly paying for, giving credits toward fees and paying for whether it's your IT service or what have you, whether that's inducements or not. And then again, it gets into your state law and your state regulation as well. But yeah, we want to hear those things. We want to hear if there's problem actors. And that's one of the reasons why the working group and NAIC comes together, and that's compliance. If you have a multi-state agency or an insurer that had tripped up in one state, reporting it to the others helps us be on the outlook to see, is it a one-off? And hey, let's face it, we're all humans, and humans running this thing. Until AI takes over, then we all might have a different job as well. But until then, it is really important that, if you want the regulator's assistance and insight, that, you have those conversations. So we just say, if it comes to mind, make the phone call, send the email.
Yeah. I would agree that, having the conversation sooner rather than later is key.
Well, that's really good to know. And I'm enthusiastically encouraging everyone to come to the work group meetings, participate. You don't have to open your mouth the first dozen times if you don't don't want to, but you can listen, get the feel, get the vibe, learn what it is like and learn what it is not like. And again, the information that is shared in those, I just think it is so good for even the small, mom and pop shop to here's what's going on in fraud trends. Here's what we're looking at in our state that is interesting and curious. I think people will be delighted, might be a stretch, but I think they'll be positively surprised to hear what goes on and see the opportunities for engagement. I think if people will give it a chance, it will relieve some frustrations that they've had in the past, potentially about just not knowing how to engage with their state's regulators. So Connie, I'd love it if let's remind people, if they want to become involved, let's remind them what they should do next.
Go to the NAIC page, or the website, I'm sorry, and find the title Insurance Working Group page under the Property and Casualty Committee group. And like I said, there you'll find all the meeting information and membership information. And you can also email the staff contact person to get on the distribution list. And, we would love nothing more than to have more people join the group.
That's terrific. And as a shortcut, we will put a link right to that page in today's show notes so that it's easy for folks to find. I just really appreciate you, again, broadening this out for the working group, putting the word out that business people, stakeholders are welcome. And I really want to thank you for coming on the podcast today, but also thank you both for the work that you're doing to help keep our markets sustainable and healthy. Because to your point, we do love our markets. They do feed us and give us our intellectual challenges. And I might over-identify with the life's work a little too much, but it is important. And it is important because people aren't consuming Chuck, you kind of hit it at earlier, 57-cent eraser. This is their home and this is big. And that's why it's so important that we do it right. And we all appreciate the role you play in helping it stay safe and effective for everybody.
Absolutely, Mary. And, I can speak on behalf of Connie and the NAIC. We really appreciate you reaching out to us, inviting us on the podcast today. One of the things I can tell you as chair and co-chair of the Title Insurance Working Group is we can assure you if you participate, we're not going to waste your time. We want your time to come in. We want you to invest yourself and express yourself and bring those ideas. If you have a problem, we also like to hear a solution. But, we look forward to seeing everybody on our next meeting. And again, I appreciate all of the time and the support that we're seeing here with October Research and the title insurance community.
That's great. Thank you. Oh, and at NS3, let's not forget, at NS3, we have the Meet Your Regulator section. To your point about the evolution over the past 10 years, we now have its own session and we have regulators from all across the country so that people can meet face to face, have a conversation, and then continue those conversations back when they get back home. So we're looking forward to that as well. Thank you both again. We'll see you very soon.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, thanks again, Chuck and Connie. I truly hope our audience will sign up, participate, and help be part of the solution. Now, audience, the link to sign up for participation is linked in today's show notes, and I hope to see you at the next virtual meeting. And in case you still want to join us for the Meet Your Regulator session at a jam-packed NS3 coming right up in mid-June, we've also placed a link to the conference overview in the show notes. Hope to see you in Pittsburgh. And until next time, keep doing everything you can to make sure our marketplace stays healthy and reputable, and we'll keep doing the same. Because at October Research, knowledge is the competitive advantage.